It's difficult with wrestling because we're not playing on the field with each other. Other sports, there might be 10 of you guys out there, but in wrestling, it's just you. And so a lot of times you really just get focused on yourself. I feel like if everyone on the team is just focused on making themselves better, in theory, that would be ideal for wrestling, right? But I've noticed that if you're reaching out to other guys, you know, they're reaching out to you, and we get to elevate each other. Whenever everyone on the team is like rowing, like if we're rowing a boat, if everyone's chasing after the same goals, that's when you get something special.
To say before every match was like, you're the best, you're going to do great. I lost sometimes, so it didn't always work, but I started shifting myself to like, I gotta win, gotta be the best. I stopped thinking about that, and it's really hard to stop, because like that's all you really want to do in your sport. You know, losing sucks, but I started thinking about having fun.
You're listening to Mentor Moments, where we talk about all things counseling, technology, education, and career development. I am Braden Wooters, and I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Michael Keener. Grab a seat, and let's get started. All right, welcome to another episode of Mentor Moments. My name is Braden Wooters.
Welcome to have you. We're excited for this episode. My name is Mike Keener, and we are with
Jeremia Larson.
Welcome.
I'm Elijah Almarinez.
Awesome, Eli. So just to give a little background, these are two Maryville student athletes, Maryville wrestlers. Elijah just finished his first year. He's from California, where Jeremiah just finished his fifth year, and he's from Neosho, Missouri. We thought it'd be interesting to kind of continue our conversation about flow, mental toughness, and really look at it from how student athletes approach it, from somebody entering their final season and somebody entering their first season to college. So I guess that's where we're at.
Mm-hmm. You know, because this podcast recording is towards the end of the school year. So I guess I'd love to hear kind of a little bit about how your seasons turned out.
I'd say my season was cut short, but I felt like I had a great season, especially as a true freshman. I think I had a lot to grow and a lot to experience and a lot to kind of look back at. And I have no regrets. I was out regionals and got cut short, but I think next year is going to be better.
So I guess if you're not maybe following a wrestler, you know, Eli was, again, as he said, a true freshman. He was our starter. You need to finish, top three in the regional tournament to go on to nationals. But I think he led the team in wins. His brother, who also is a wrestler, kind of joked that maybe he spent too much time on the backside. You know, sometimes when you lose early, you get all these extra matches wrestling back for third. I just want to look at that. Actually, he's pretty talented. As a true freshman, he was really, racking up the wins against some tough competition. Jeremiah, how about your season?
I guess it was a good way to end it. I ended up All-Americaning, so I took 8th in the country at the 197-pound weight class. So won the super regional tournament, and I guess I racked up a few wins, and it was a good way to go out.
Good stuff. Yeah, to be an All-American, you finished top 8 in the country, so it's a select few. And again, there's 6 regions, so you have to be only 18 wrestlers get invited, I guess, or qualify for the national tournament for all our wrestling fans there. Jeremiah got the special treat to wrestle an extra match too. So he had to win an extra match to become an All-American. I'm just curious to think about, I guess to let our listeners in, we've been talking about flow, getting in the zone. We've been talking about mental toughness and mental preparation and how to prepare. And I guess, I don't know, let's start with Jeremiah, because he's had a few years here first. But so in general, how did you prepare knowing this was your final season? So was there anything special or different that you did?
Yeah, I definitely had a different mindset than I had in previous years. The year before, my 4th year, I'd had a pretty rough, consistent year where there was lots of ups and downs, where I'd have a good win and then I'd have a really bad loss. It was a really, really bad year where by the end of the season, I was pretty sure I was going to be done wrestling and was going to just retire. Starting to think it wasn't for me anymore. And going into the regional tournament, I just kind of let go of any and all expectations and said, well, if this is my last tournament ever wrestling, I don't want to be spinning it, worrying the whole time and trying to wrestle for anything other than just going out and wrestling. So I went out and wrestled like I had nothing to lose, because in my mind it was a win-win situation at that point, where if I did good and I placed top 3 and I qualified for nationals, well, that was the goal all along. But if I wrestled bad, if I had another bad day, whatever, I didn't qualify, then like, well, like I'm going to go on, get a job, finish grad school, and just, go on with my life and not have to deal with what I'd been dealing with that whole year. And so it kind of put me in a situation where I felt like I couldn't lose. And I just had no fear of losing, because I was, I guess, at ease with whatever the outcome was. I'd made peace with the worst possible outcome. And so that was kind of going into this year. It was kind of like surrendering the outcome and focusing on just the process of getting better in wrestling. So that was really the biggest switch for this year. Is I still had the same goals, but I stopped letting those kind of be the monkey on my back or the devil on my shoulder, however you want to put it. I stopped letting that be what was eating at me, at night. And I stopped weighing my self-worth as a person based off of how I won, if I won matches or not. And I just went out and wrestled. And if I lost, then okay, you lose, it happens. On to the next one. Let's make our adjustments. If you win, okay, what can we take from it? Never too high, never too low. And just really surrendering the outcome and just focusing on wrestling, getting better. That was really the biggest change for me, was just taking it day by day and just, again, not tying my self-worth to winning or losing.
Jeremiah, I want to give a follow-up question. You're mentioning something that is really, important, which is that kind of mindset shift. And that's something that I've been working with a lot of my athletes on trying to do. Here, hindsight, we're able to look back, and was it like a switch, or was it like a dimmer that, like, slowly as the season progressed, you kind of came to that conclusion of that like mindset shift?
Well, for me, it ended up kind of just being a switch, because it came down to that, that last tournament where it was that day. That whole weekend, I guess you could consider it as a dimmer, because I'd been thinking that way for those last 2 weeks of season, or the last bit of season, that as it was going on, I was like, well, when I started to think about the fear of, losing and not qualifying, just, I don't know, I came to terms with it. And so I was able to just flip that switch, and where the day of, I just kind of had a smile on my face. I was joking at the weigh-ins, and I was, again, before matches, I was just kind of calm. And, even when I got nerves, I just kind of like, going into that last match where if I win it, I qualify for nationals. If I lose, I don't. I'd been in that situation the year before and lost. And going into it, I just started feeling those nerves, and I went, so what? If I lose, so what? Let's go out and just wrestle. It was more of a dimmer, I'd say. Yeah. Because it was like, as the days go on, if you can't just show up that day and switch and be like, okay, my mindset's that I'm, surrendering the outcome, because that whole time you got to be kind of thinking about it during practice, or you can't be, if you have a bad practice, you can't be like, if I have practices like this, I'm not gonna do good. Or if you have a good practice, you can't, it goes both ways. You gotta keep that mindset every day, and just take it day by day, and just focus on, again, the process, not the outcome. Don't think about whether you had a good practice or not. Find the positives and just go on with it.
Just because I know Jeremiah pretty closely, and maybe this is, for all the student athletes listening, their competition, if we go like strength finders, is usually like pretty high, and they dial it up. What I found, again, with Jeremiah, like, he's extremely hard on himself, and he wants perfection sort of at every single practice. And again, like, as you said, just sort of saying, okay, well, that's sort of unrealistic. And so, yes, we want to strive for that, but yet then sort of, okay, what can I, we talked a lot about being optimal, okay, we might not be perfect, but what's optimal? We're always going to, there's still in wrestling, there's always going to be an injury or a bruise or something, so I think that's, Jeremiah decided I'm at one more time and practice a little bit, but maybe that's a good time to ask Eli a question. What do you think, Eli? How did you have any conscious? I guess I don't know how you prepared going into your senior in high school, but like, did you do anything specific for entering, your first year of college wrestling?
Yeah, college is definitely different than high school. It's the mindset changes is crazy. I think the main mindset I had was just appreciate the moment. For the end of the season, it got a little rough. It got a little tiring, kind of worried, but that's the lessons we learned. But the transition from high school to college is just, do you want it? And what are you willing to do to get it? And it's also staying very like, okay, I'm not on my own, but I'm also on my own, to the fact where I got to do a lot of these things alone and not have my hand held. Even though I know the coaches are there for me, I had to understand that cutting weight, I had to figure that out. And, I of course had my older brother that also did wrestling, and a lot of the older guys to tell me, but in reality, it's really just, it's up to you if you really want to do it. Or these like last 2 pounds, I always just imagine like the last 2 pounds of cutting weight is always the hardest, because it's really not up to anyone. It's up to you. And that's kind of how I transitioned it. It's either you want it or it's not going to happen. And that goes for practicing to your hardest, or it goes to eating the right way. Because it's kind of funny, in high school and senior year, I just ate whatever I want. I didn't really have a strict diet, but in college, it's such the little things, like not eating the candy bar, or, not drinking the soda, or tapering down the soda, maybe getting a 0 calorie. It's stuff like that just makes a little bit difference in your mind. And in college, I wasn't perfect either, but I think toward the end, and finally taking advice from my brother and some coaches, that's like, I'm trying to do the right things right now. And that's drinking my gallon of water, or it's right now taking creatine, taking protein powder, and always go in the trainer. I feel like the trainer is top 10, top 3 things to do, especially in college when everything hurts all the time. And I think Jeremiah would agree with me on that.
Yeah, I think I spent too many days in the trainer. I was in there almost every day for 5 years.
I think we should shout out, we had a brand new trainer, Courtney Cox, last year for the team. So she needs again, shout out that she was at practice every day, traveled with us, and obviously doing all the treatment before and after competitions.
Yeah. She crushed it.
Yeah. That's what I'm going to miss the most. It's walking to practice after the trainers with Jeremiah. I feel like that's the little moments that I'm going to miss the most.
Yeah.
You got to turn it around, right? Even though it's second year, you're the big man now. You got to find the first year guy to walk to the training room with. Yeah, I guess I do. It was fun, but I guess I do got to find me a mini me, and I got to be the next year of my own in the training room.
Eli, I'm curious, a trend that I'm seeing a lot with my, freshman athletes that have transferred into like a D1 school is that they were like top dog in their like previous place. Like maybe they were like the best on their team in high school. And then as soon as they entered the college scene, pretty soon everybody is just as good or maybe somewhat better than us. And it's a big whiplash. I'm curious if that's something that you saw as well, or if that was like just more motivation for you. Because sometimes it's more about the reaction to that as opposed to anything else. I'm just kind of curious what you saw.
Well, yeah. So I'm not gonna lie. It wasn't the first day. It wasn't the first practice of being a collegiate athlete that humbled me. It was coming here. I was here for a couple weeks in the spring to visit my brother, and I walked into SIU's room for the RTC. Man, I got humbled. And coming from a high school, I was always kind of, I want to say the underdog, but I wasn't the favorite or like kind of the top dog. I was definitely one of them, but I wasn't definitely the top dog. And coming into the room, I was like, you know what, I'm still trying my best. But yeah, that college room was humbling. In the SIUE RTC room, I was getting my butt kicked by their starter, Drew Davis. I buckled down, kept my head straight, and wrestled him in a duel later that year against SIUE, and I ended up beating him. But I think the trend of being, the top dog and slowly going down, it's real. I see it all the time. But I feel like I was humbled from, while I was still in high school by college guys, and I knew that college was definitely a different breed than high school, stronger, faster, and I think it's no more easy matches. And that's what I got. It was the spring of my senior year, and I wasn't wrestling, and I was a bit relaxing. I thought, I was like, man, I just did this. I'm one of the best in my high school. Then shoot, and getting beat up in the room by college guys. And that was the humbling moment. And you're right.
Eli, I'm interested, again, now you have it a year under your belt. What, I guess, what's the summer look like, and how do you think it will propel you for year two?
I think the summertime is the most like valuable and peak time where you can get better. And I'm dealing with a slight injury right now, so I am actually going to take a little bit of rest and recover. But I think that working out and just putting just a little bit effort and just not being a couch potato is the best way to approach the summertime. And I think even if I get this a lot from I know I mentioned him a lot right now, but my brother, he goes, doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you're in Hawaii or it doesn't matter you're in the Bahamas. If you got some running shoes, you can run on vacation. If you're at the hotel, you can work out there. And it's just like the thing, it's the mind, the switch, because everyone on vacation is like, no, man, I don't want to work out on vacation. Or you go to a hotel gym. I get this a lot. You go to the hotel gym, they only have dumbbells. You know, I think you can do a million things with a hotel gym, especially with a treadmill and a couple dumbbells. So I do think the summertime is so important to get better mentally and reflecting back, and also physically. It's getting your body back to shape and getting back to a healthy weight where you don't have to cut 20 pounds in the summer. And I know some of our guys had to deal with that, in the season. But I think it's just important to recover and also mentally and physically kind of be at your best, so you're ready for the season in August.
Well, I guess I'm hearing, really with throughout the season and here, there's this maturing process, personally and athletically. Like kind of like you said, you're sort of on, even though you have a support system, team, your brother, coaches, but it's ultimately you, right? And again, it's sort of, as you said, that it's also that state of mind to say maybe slow and steady wins the race. Every day, is there a little something, what's that one thing that I can do?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that is correct. Slow and steady and just keep picking it away, every time I feel like I did a little bit extra than the whole, D2, probably it's not true, but in my mind, I did more than you today. It doesn't matter who you are. You can be the number one, number two, number three. I did more than you. And that always kind of made me mentally, even though if I didn't, maybe I was behind, I was behind, D2, and that little bit didn't really matter. It just mentally, I think it clocks in where it's like, you did more today and it's going to pay off. And that little bit, it's just going to keep chipping away into the medals, into the podium, into the NCAA championship, and I feel like just doing a little bit and being slow and steady, like a little bit now, is going to be great. And I always get this philosophy where it's like, do 10 push-ups today, tomorrow do 20, and you keep racking it up, and it's going to get easier over time because you got to start in day one.
My question for you, you're touching on really big things, which is processes versus outcome. That's a great thing to have individually. I'm curious about team culture. Is that something that's been just baked into your team? Is that something that started with the coaching? What has that been like here at Maryville?
Definitely, I think it was very shaky. Of course, I was with Coach Scherz my first year, but I can kind of see some, a little bit of team culture shift because a lot of new freshmen came in, and also the old coach just retired, and some of it just team culture is not really matching a little bit, and I understood that. But I think team culture here is very embedded, and I think we could use some more. I think people think it's stupid. The oos, me and Doc do that, but I think it's great. I think it just, even though it looks stupid and people will laugh at us, and we're doing it in, Gander, and we're doing it out in public, and everyone's staring like, who's doing, what does oos mean? I think it's just fun because it gives us culture. It gives us something to do, and just me and Doc greeting each other, and Jeremia too. And I feel like a lot of the older guys doing it. I think it's just powerful in a way of, we're a team. We're not just shake hands and we're teammates. We're out celebrating, we're having fun with each other, and we're bonding over something. And I also think that just a little separated, especially a little, I think, and Jeremia can shut me down on this. I think just its starting 10, just going out, was very quiet. The man right is very quiet. And I think sometimes but they're all great guys. I think it was just some quiet moments where I'm still trying to figure out myself in the lineup. It's do I talk? Do I be funny? Or do I be a little serious? And Jeremiah was always funny, so I always felt like more welcome to him. And Cole, our national champ, three-time All-American, he was very quiet, but he's also, if you get to know him, he's a great guy. And I think just it takes one guy or two guys to just be very outgoing, and it'll bring the team a little bit together. And I think Jeremiah was that, but I think with the new freshmen coming in, I think they're just a little too uncomfortable. But I think I'm gonna bring back a little bit more culture next year and be more together rather than kind of separated into their own individual things.
Jeremiah, you've been able to kind of see the team culture too. I mean, you've had some time under your belt to kind of see how it's developed. I'm curious what you've seen.
There's kind of like a whole, I don't know if I'd say science, but almost a bit of a science to building team culture. Especially in wrestling, there's a bit of the collective suffering part where you guys are all doing this very difficult thing together and you guys are suffering together. You kind of grow a little bit closer, but overall, just the importance of like a fellowship, being I don't know, you have to be willing to stick your neck out for your teammates. And it's difficult with wrestling because, we're not like playing on the field with each other, in other sports, there might be 10 of you guys out there, but in wrestling, it's just you. And so a lot of times you really just get focused on yourself. And so it can really, if everyone on the team, I feel like if everyone on the team is just focused on making themselves better, in theory, that would be ideal for wrestling, right? Just put all your energy into yourself. But I noticed that whenever you focus on, well, not focus, but if you're reaching out to other guys, they're reaching out to you, and it kind of, we get to elevate each other. Whenever everyone on the team is like rowing, like if we're rowing a boat, if everyone's chasing after the same goals, that's when you get something special. A lot, I don't know. Some coaches think that for wrestling it needs to be like cutthroat, like it's me or you. But when it comes to the team aspect of it, if whenever it comes down to the end of the season, especially if it's not you, if you're not the guy that's going and going to be on the lineup at regionals, you have to be, I mean, at that point, yourself doesn't matter. You need to make sure, you need to kind of put that out of your head and think for those 2 weeks, whoever your training partner is, who is wrestling, that's who you got to focus on. And, it can't be, well, I don't feel like doing this, or I kind of want to drill this. No, you do what they need, because they would do the same for you in that situation. And again, I think the buying into something bigger than yourself is important. There kind of needs to be an overall idea behind the program that, put the program first. I've seen, seems like the rougher team cultures I've been on, everyone just was kind of concerned with themselves. And again, it was, well, yeah, I'll do this if it benefits me, but they weren't willing to, put their hand up and volunteer and help with doing stuff that they don't enjoy doing to help build the program. I guess my whole college career, I was always tried to buy into I guess not lead by example, but it kind of ended up being like that. But just, doing what the program needs. And if that's mopping mats every day or every other day or whatever, no one really wants to mop mats. It's a task that has to get done before and after practice. No one really wants to mop mats, but doing that because that's what needs to be done, that helps build the culture. When you got a whole bunch of guys that are willing to go out and do those little small things. A lot of people, I've noticed a lot of guys, especially in wrestling, they're like, I'm here to wrestle. They're like, I'm not here to mop mats, or I'm not here to do fundraising, or I'm not here to go to a team barbecue or something. I'm here to wrestle. If you got everybody thinking like that and just thinking about themselves, there's really no program there. It's just a whole bunch of wrestling individuals. So you got to be, if everyone out there is, they're working as hard as they can to get as good as they can so they can achieve their own personal goals. You gotta be willing at those times when the mats need mopped, you gotta sweep the shed. There's an old coach I had that he used to tell a story about, I forget what regiment it was in the Army, but the leaders on the team, the whatever rank they were, the top rank of the regiment would sweep the barracks every day. The top, the leader of the unit was doing the grunt work too. I really believe in that lead by example. I'm not gonna. I was a captain for the past 3 years, and one of my big things is if I'm gonna be trusted as a leader, I don't want to be telling people to do something that I wouldn't do myself. So I would rather I'd rather ask them to do something and show them that I'm willing to do the work too. There's not, I'm not asking you just to make my life easier. I'm asking you so we can help better the team. So again, I think that the putting yourself aside and working towards something that's greater than yourself is one of the biggest things for building the team culture.
I love that. Dr. Keener, I'm starting to understand why you wanted these two on the podcast.
Well, they're my heroes. That's what
Right.
those guys are. Just look at them. When they smile, look at them. Come on. Well, can I give another shout out to them, Brayton? Well, both are academic All-Americans as well. So, Jeremiah was so good with his academics. He was able to get both an undergrad and grad out of his 5 years. And again, Eli just finished his first year. I don't know how many he was a 4.0 first semester, and I think this second semester he was a 3.8, but he's only gotten A's or A minuses so far in his college careers. To me, those are, and again, to me, those are other qualities that come into mindset. Like you need to be, again, prepared off the mat just as much as you're on the mat, right? Like if you're not doing those things, you're not going to be eligible and you can't compete. So like, let's not, let's just make sure you're good in the classroom as well.
And I think the reason why I'm asking so many questions about like team culture and things like that is because I'm funneling into those intrinsic motivators, like where we talk about flow and mental toughness. And I think a huge part is being motivated by something, kind of what Jeremiah said, is something, bigger than yourself. So I'm kind of curious if there's any other kind of big motivators for you guys to succeed. Like what kinds of things do you tap into to kind of lock in, I suppose?
Yeah. I used to have like this prayer, and not really a prayer, this thing they used to say before every match was like, you're the best, you're going to do great, you're going to do great. I lost sometimes, so it didn't always work, but I started shifting myself to like, I gotta win, gotta be the best. I stopped thinking about that. And it's really hard to stop because like, that's all you really want to do in your sport. Losing sucks, but I started thinking about having fun. It was very, it sounds really silly. And everyone's like, it's not supposed to be fun. Wrestling's not supposed to be fun. Coach used to say like, you're having fun. Like, why are you smiling? I remember at national duels, I was having a terrible time. Like at that point, it was just like, man, I'm tired of wrestling. I want to go back home. And coach was talking. He was like, hey, what's wrong? Like, and I was like, I'm not having fun. He goes, fun? What are you talking about fun? Winning's fun. I'm like, yeah, it just doesn't feel good. And then the next day I wrestle, I'm like, until I say that prayer again, it's like, I gotta be the best, gotta be the best. I lose the match, and I'm like down on myself. I'm like, how am I ever going to come back? And I don't think they were trying to offend me, but I wasn't offended at all. But my teammates were like, hey, like, what's happening, man? Like, you used to be like the funnest wrestler to watch, or what happened? You losing your spark? I'm like, I was about to say yes. And the next match, without saying it, I didn't say that prayer. I went, let's have fun today. In my very last match, I ended up beating the guy up, and I felt like I shifted my mentality. And sometimes I'm just, I think about myself like, I'm just a freshman. I'm only 18, 19 years old, and I'm putting it on myself, putting like a lot of weight on my shoulders. And at the regional tournament, like, guess what I didn't have? I didn't have fun. It took me to my last match, where I'm down on myself, especially in I think it was my semis match. I got hurt and I got teched. That was the only time I ever got teched in my college career. And I was really feeling down myself, like my knee hurts. Coach, I just want to stop. Next match, I come in hot, then end up losing that match I wasn't supposed to lose. And I'm like, it doesn't even matter. I'm not even going to regional anymore. And a lot of my teammates trying to cheer me up. Coaches start, he's a little mad. You can tell he's a little mad because I was putting it on that kid, and I just end up losing. My last match was like, it's my last match of the season. I'm hurt. I was crying like 10 minutes ago about my knee. I'm just going to put it on this kid and have fun. And I won my last match of the season. I wasn't happy about how the tournament ended, but, I was like, I'm going to keep my chin up, and the next 3 or 4 years, I'm just going to continue to have fun, and winning's not all of it, and taking the weight off my shoulders. And I think the key word is to have fun and appreciate every single match, every single practice, and every single workout with a smile on my face. I think that's my motivator.
Love it. And I think sometimes that's the challenge when we say take it moment by moment. Some of those moments are pretty tough, right? And so it's how do we stay, again, maybe not let the moment get too big or too small. And again, just keep reminding yourself to, again, you're doing this sport for a reason because you love it. And so again, how can we have fun with
Yeah. Eli, it's so fun that it's funny that you said that. Like, I have notes just for like if I have a question that I want to ask, and one of the questions on my notes was, where does fun enter the mix? And it's funny that you brought that up way before I even asked it. So I love that. Where do you see like other wrestlers or like just other college athletes? Like, where do you see them getting stuck? Like, are there trends that you see other athletes like falling into like a mental trap, or do you see them, focusing on the wrong things? What are things that you guys have noticed?
I think just a lot of it. All of it you said is kind of the answer. It's just falling to the wrong things. Maybe it's their boyfriend, girlfriend, or it's a substance, or maybe too much video games. I've seen that a lot. Or just always getting stuck mentally where it's just like this isn't fun, or this is like coach is chirping at me, coach is mad, the team doesn't like me, and it's like this sucks, and this drops them from the sport. And what I also seen is people getting burnt out. I see people like, man, this is like just so much. I need to take a break from it. And I think breaks are awesome. I think they're just like, if you're really worn out and really stressed out about your sport, taking a month off in the summer or taking a little bit of time off is great. And what I kind of see with being trapped or thinking about other things, a lot of people want to go home, or a lot of people want to like, I can't overcome this injury, or this is just the sport. It means nothing anymore. It's not having fun. Some of the stuff is like, oh, yeah, I got a dream to have a solution to my problems, or I got to take up the vape, or I got to smoke or something. I see a lot of people getting trapped, and a lot of people who are very high leveled. It's just getting put down by those outside factors. And sometimes it's grades, or it's like, I'm not really caring about grades, and it bites you in the butt 6 months later where you're ineligible now, or 3 months later you're straight F's, and it's like, I can't wrestle this semester, and I was 30 or something crazy in the first semester, and it's like, shoot, I have an F, I can't go. It's stuff like that where you got to make sure you're professional and you're doing the right things and having someone to talk to or having help. And I think if you're feeling trapped, you shouldn't be scared to tell someone, especially if you're at Maryville. You should always be able to talk to Doc. And who I had to talk to was Jeremia. I talked to him a lot about when I felt really burnt out, especially in the end of first semester and the start of the second. And I think it's just figuring out that you need help and that you should get help. And am I doing the right things or am I not?
Again, I think that's sometimes a tough message for student athletes, where, they're ingrained that they're tough or they're independent, or again, maybe they've never had to combat that before. I don't want to jump in too much. Jeremiah, you have any thoughts?
Yeah. This is, this hits, close, Doc. Yeah, I've struggled with this myself multiple times over the years. And one of the things that I've noticed people, I guess, fall into, and they kind of fall into low spots. Sometimes it's just from, like Eli said, focusing on the wrong things. Athletes, I guess, I can't speak for all athletes, but I can speak for myself and several others that I've known. We tend to tie our identity and self-worth to the sport. And especially once you get to college, you're good at it. So you had to be good at it to get to college. And so you come to college and you get your butt kicked, or, you start having too high of expectations for yourself. It's okay to expect things from yourself. I mean, I struggled a lot with, I felt like I did all the right things. I felt like I worked very hard. I felt like I outworked everyone and did this and that. And so when I lost the match, it was, what's wrong with me? It kind of went to that self-worth where I put too much weight on winning or losing, and if I won a good match, I'd be like, I'd feel normal just because I won. Like I had to win to feel like I was, like myself. But when I lost, I was down for the whole week. I was down until I won again because I felt like my entire self-worth was tied into if I won or lose, won or lost, whatever. But would you believe I was an English tutor too? It's funny. But yeah, it's the little things like that where once I got into those pits where you're not having fun, you're not, you feel like you shouldn't be doing this. You got to reshift your focus. And that's where again, going back to the process versus outcome. I can't say it enough. Like focusing on, falling in love with the process and just taking it day by day. I mean, saved my career. You got to take in the little moments where, I used to go to practice early so I could get extra reps in. And, like as I got older and my joints started becoming decrepit, I had to get in there early, get extra warmed up because the little 5-minute warm up was enough for me. But I started to enjoy that, getting in early and just, hitting a few extra reps, feeling good and kind of getting yourself into that flow for practice where like you hit couple of good shots and you're like, oh yeah, I can wrestle. It's those little moments like walking from the trainers with Eli and, just getting ready to go and have a good scrap. You have to build those, build that process, build that routine, sitting in the trainers every day. I got to know all the trainers and, talking to the trainers was a part of my day where sometimes I'd have a bad practice if I didn't go to the trainer just because I didn't get into the right mindset because I wasn't sitting there chit chatting with everyone. And another thing, on the little things and kind of ties into the don't put too much weight on anything is that word optimal. Okay. Cause when I got to my 5th year, I'll be honest, I wasn't as good on my diet as I had been in the past. Like I was really good on my diet 3rd year. I had a lot of growth 3rd year, but I ended up falling short at regional tournament. And, from there I went downhill. And by the time I got to this year and you're in, grad school and you have, all these different things that you do. And I would run study halls for the guys on the team two nights a week. And you got practice, you got extra workouts. All this starts adding up. And I don't know, I didn't have to cut too much weight. So I needed to be optimal. And that doesn't mean I had to be perfect, right? I couldn't be perfect on my diet and perfect on my mental preparation and perfect on my schoolwork and perfect on my performance. I couldn't do that. So I had to choose. I had to do everything to the level I needed it to be. I had a good enough diet to compete. I wasn't blowing up to where I was so heavy I had to cut weight the night before. I was still tracking somewhat. I'd done it enough that I knew how much protein I needed to eat roughly. I knew how much carbs I needed to eat roughly. If I had a practice where I felt a little extra tired and weak, I'd eat some more carbs. If I was a little heavy, I'd cut down on the carbs. If I was a little light, I'd, eat a little bit more. I didn't need to put that much thought or focus into diet because my weight wasn't that big of a problem and my strength was good enough. It was the same thing in the weight room where I wasn't worried about being weaker than everyone because I'd already felt like I'd proved to myself and to other people that I was, which, other people's opinions don't really matter on that when it comes to, getting yourself ready to compete. But I felt like I was strong enough to where I had the strength taken care of. By the end of the season, I didn't, worry myself about doing extra bike sprints or extra whatever. And I didn't worry about, did I push myself hard enough this practice to build my gas tank? Because I knew I had a great gas tank. I knew I could go. I'd just tell myself I can do this all day. Like I'd tell myself the Captain America quote, I can do this all day. All I have to do is wrestle. I can do this all day. So finding those things to put in your bucket. You got buckets, put more in this bucket. I felt that the biggest key to my success over my entire career was mental preparation. So this year I put all the eggs in that basket. I was meeting with a therapist bi-weekly. I was meeting with Doc weekly. I started meeting with a life coach and he was a former wrestling coach, great for mental preparation, Mike Haggerty. Started meeting with him weekly also. And I put a lot of extra work into the mental preparation And I guess I've been putting all that work in over the past 3 years because that's where I needed the work. I was strong enough. If I hit 20 more reps in the weight room, the return on gains, the return on energy spent was going to be minimal compared to if I had an extra meeting to work on my mind during the week. If I spent the extra hour weighing all of my protein or whatever, honestly, the return on that wouldn't have been as good as spending an hour or 2 hours with my girlfriend or my friends to just relax and not have the weight of the season hanging on me. So figuring out, it's good to shoot for perfection, but you gotta be able to, you can't let that control you, where if you like, oh my goodness, I didn't have a good diet this week, I'm going to fail. You can't let that. You can be like, well, I might not have had a good diet this week, but my weight's under control. I'm strong enough. I'm in good enough shape. I'm mentally prepared enough. I know how to wrestle. You have to kind of give yourself all this list of things to where when you have something bad, it's not that bad. You can deal with it. And that really helped me, I think, as I got to the end of the season, because I had a few, nicks and knacks at the end of the season. Long story short, first round at Super Regionals, I tore my LCL in my knee, like 20 seconds in. I had guys shoot on my leg and felt a big old pop in my knee and had a lot of pain. And then, ref stopped it, but I was on bottom. I just had to kind of shake it off and go, well, I don't know what that is, but you don't need your knee to wrestle. That's what I told myself. I said, you don't need I knew when it happened, because I've torn enough things. I know where an LCL is, that I was like, well, that's the LCL. And I said, well, you don't need an LCL to wrestle. I wrestled, and about 20 seconds later, I pinned the guy, and I came off the mat, and I I wasn't putting too much weight on it anyways, because I knew that no matter what happened, all I had to do was go wrestle. So I told, I came off the mat, and I told coaches and a trainer, I was like, I think I just tore my LCL. And they're like, I don't think it's anything. It's probably fine. It's blah, 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 because they didn't want me to overthink it, which I've done in the past. I had the maturity now at this point to, again, like I told myself, you don't need an LCL to wrestle, because I'd wrestled with enough injuries over the years where I told myself, you've wrestled through worse, again, you can find a way. All you got to do is wrestle. You can't think about your knee. Just go and wrestle and you're fine. Focus on hand fight and focus on what you do and just go have fun. So that next match, I wrestled he was a 2-time All-American. He was ranked number 3 in the nation, and just went out. I ended up having a little scary moment where I got hit in the head and, kind of got a little fuzzy. I had to take a little bit of time to recover. But even then I was like, you don't need your head to wrestle. And I just kept wrestling, and I just focused on wrestling and just focused on the moment. I was winning the match all the way till the last 30 seconds of it. I was up by 1, whatever. And then I got taken down with 20 seconds left, and I have to get away in 20 seconds or I lose. And again, in other times in that moment, I would freak out, or anyone would freak out in that moment where like, oh my goodness, I'm about to blow this match. But I'd been there before, and I'd already made peace with losing the match. Didn't think I was going to lose the match, but I also didn't think I was going to win it. I was just going to keep wrestling. And I looked up at the clock, saw that I had about 15 seconds and had enough time to just be like, I'm fine. If I'd tried to force something in the past, in that moment, I would have been like, oh, I got to get out. I'm going to get out. And I would have hit a roll or something and just gave it away to him and just gave him a free win. But in that moment, I was able to be like, all right, I'm just going to feel it out. And I ended up reversing him to his back and pinning him in the last second, I guess. There was a second left on the clock, but I think it would have been 2 seconds if they'd stopped the clock earlier. But pinned him, qualified for nationals. And Cole Ritter, our national champ, my teammate, I, look up to a lot. He told me afterwards, he said, anyone else would have quit in that situation. Well, he said about, 90% of guys would have quit in that situation. That would have happened, and they went, damn, I just blew the match. But yeah, he said 90% of people would have quit there. And I'd been in those I'd lost a lot of matches in the last 10 seconds over my career. So it was the strangest thing, because the whole place went nuts, about gave my dad a heart attack, because they were all like, oh my God, Jeremiah blew it again. But I felt like out of that entire building of people going crazy, I felt like I was the only person that was calm. Because again, I was I was just focused at the task at hand. I wasn't thinking about the outcome of the match. I wasn't really thinking about the outcome of the match until I looked up, saw the clock, that there was a second left, and I was like, oh, I did just pin him. Pointed at my corner, like, hey, I did it. Got off the mat and slowly started sinking in, like, oh, you just qualified for nationals again. Like, you're going to nationals. That's the tournament for you. You know, you just battled through all this different stuff. You went through this whole season and you just qualified again. That's, you know, a huge accomplishment. Didn't really sink in until I went and saw my parents. So again, that optimal, then just the focusing on the task at hand, the little moments, focusing on the task at hand. Like, I was wrestling. You can't put that weight of the situation on yourself. You can't go into the match thinking about if you're going to qualify for nationals or not. You can't go into the match thinking about losing or winning. I just go into the match, and before the match, I'm just think about like wrestling. Like, I just visualize myself hand fighting and stuff. I don't even, into my career, I didn't even really tell myself, you know, in the past, kind of like Eli was talking about how he had his little sayings that he'd say to himself, where he'd say, I'm the best, I'm the strongest, I'm the fastest. I would just tell myself, like, you know, I was like, you're real strong, you're real fast for 197. You know, I was like, you got real good shape. I was like, you got the best gas tank, you know how to wrestle, you've done this before, you know, for the outcome.
I think the last thing that I'll add to all this is that, you know, I think in the counseling and therapy space, we get bogged down with a lot of definitions and fancy words, lots of cognitive reframe and self-regulation and group cohesion. And it's nice. It's just so refreshing to talk to, you know, to people where we get to see it play out. You know, we put away the fancy words and because you're talking about things that, you know, you're talking about all these things, intrinsic motivation, flow, and it's one thing to talk about it, and then it's another thing to do it. So I really appreciate that we're having the time to just talk about all that. So, Dr. Keener, any other thoughts?
No, I guess I just want to, I'm going to put Eli on the spot, you know, like, so, like, what's Eli's take-home message to the first-year guys? You know, all the first-year, you know, men and women come into college. What is your number one tip for all those new student athletes to help them have the most successful season possible?
Man, there's a lot. One thing, just not putting it down is so hard to pick, but I guess I would say is enjoy the moment. It's going to be your first year of college, and you know, it's going to be so much fun. And if you put too much pressure on yourself, and if you kind of not enjoy it and have a bad time and have a bad attitude about it, it's not going to be fun, and you're not going to prosper as much as you think you're going to be. It's going to be, the lights are going to be bright. You know, the noise is going to be loud in the stadiums, and everything's going to be so much pressure. It's like, oh my God, I'm in college. Everything's on it. You know, you're stressed out. But if you just, you know, have fun, take it slow, and appreciate the moment and appreciate the time that you're doing it. And it's not just at the big wins, or it's not just at the games. It's the practices, it's the extra workouts, it's the morning lifts, it's the morning runs, or it's some little extra that your coach is putting at the end of practice, even if it's like punishment, like Versa climbers. I used to hate Versa climbers coming in, then I realized I miss it, you know, coming out the seasons and stuff like that. But I would say appreciate the time and just soak in the moment. That would be my one tip. And it's so important. It's so small to think about having a great attitude about your first year of college, because this is it. You know, this is the time where you can show yourself and you can have fun, and, you know, and you're a freshman. It doesn't really, it does matter, of course, but you're a freshman. At the end of the day, you're going to learn, you're going to grow, you're going to take some losses, you're going to take some beats. You're going to, if you have a good attitude about it, you're going to grow and prosper. And that's my take.
That's a great mentor moment right there. Well, I want to thank Jeremiah and Eli for joining us on Mentor Moments.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.